This past week, it was reported that a law student's graduation was put on hold, or at least in jeopardy, and his diploma was put on hold because the Federalist Society couldn't take a joke. It's a pretty good joke, and it's a pretty interesting strategic use of a complaint, so I thought we would talk about it. Above the Law reports that Nicholas Wallace poked fun at the way the Federalist Society handled the January 6th violent insurrection at the Capitol. So here's his email, which contains an event invite. The Stanford Federalist Society presents, and there's Josh Hawley, and I forget who the other guy is, the originalist case for inciting insurrection, Tuesday, January 6, 12:45 p.m. Riot information will be emailed the morning of the event. The first 30 students to RSVP will receive a $10 Grubhub coupon to be used on the day of the event. Please join the Stanford Federalist Society as we welcome Senator Joshua Hawley and Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton to discuss violent insurrection. So I'm guessing that's Ken Paxton. Violent insurrection, also known as doing a coup, is a classical system of installing a government. Although widely believed to conflict in every way with the rule of law, violent insurrection can be an effective approach to upholding the principle of limited government. Senator Hawley will argue that the ends justify the means. Attorney General Paxton will explain that when the Supreme Court refuses to exercise its Article 3 authority to overturn the results of a free and fair election, calling on a violent mob to storm the Capitol represents an appropriate alternative remedy. And then it goes on to describe the speakers. Senator Joshua Hawley is a junior U.S. Senator from the state of Missouri. Before entering the Senate, he served as the Attorney General of Missouri. He received his Bachelor of the Arts in History from Stanford University and his J.D. from Yale, where he was president of the school's Federal Society chapter. He then clerked for then-Judge Michael McConnell of the United States Court of Appeals and Chief Justice John Roberts of the Supreme Court. Ken Paxton is the Attorney General of Texas. More information on the official Federalist Society biography page. So I guess they're both members of the Federalist Society. He is currently under investigation for securities fraud. The Stanford Federalist Society takes no position on particular legal or public policy issues. The views of individual speakers do not necessarily represent the views of the Stanford Federalist Society or its membership. Funding for these gift cards is generously provided by our National Federalist Society organization. No law school funding was used. If you do not have access to Grubhub, we can work with you to find an alternative. And then that received a complaint. But it was a somewhat timely complaint, as I believe it came at the end of the school year, just before graduation. On May 22nd, with graduation looming, the Stanford Federalist Society officer pushed the school to initiate a formal investigation. Wallace did not receive the complaint until May 27th, his last day of classes. So some context here for you. When you're finishing law school, you're a 3L, you're in your last year of law school, graduation is not the end. Graduation is the beginning of the end, but it's a very stressful end because your last day of classes, great, you're done with classes, but now you have maybe 2 weeks to study for the final exams. Your final exams pretty much determine your entire grade in your law school classes. Those grades don't really affect that much, but assuming that you're not like on the edge of eligibility to take the bar exam, you should be fine. But then you have the bar exam, and you'll have maybe 6 weeks to study for the bar exam then after that. So you finish school. And by the way, if you finish school, your student loans become due. So your student loans become due while you're studying for the bar exam. It's a great thing. You don't get a job for like 5-6 months after you graduate, but your student loans are due. So you finish school, you have to study for your finals, you have to take your finals, you then have to study for the bar, you then have to take the bar, and then you hopefully have something lined up while you're waiting to find out whether you passed the bar. This is a very stressful part of a lawyer's career, a future lawyer's career, since he hasn't passed the bar yet. So having a complaint filed during the last week of classes, having it served on him on May 27th, the last day of classes, right before studying for finals, having him, he has to respond to this in time. And let's not forget that in order to take the bar exam, you have to submit your diploma. And in this case, the hold on his diploma has jeopardized his plans to take the Michigan bar exam this summer. The state bar requires applicants to send their diplomas immediately upon graduation, which he will not be able to do because Stanford placed a hold on his degree pending the outcome of its investigation. So he can't graduate and he can't get his diploma because it's investigating him for a possible violation of the fundamental standard, which is the school's code of conduct. So that seems calculated. Something that happened on, I think, January 25th is when he wrote the mock satiristic letter. So first of all, is there some claim or something that he actually spoofed something? No, because it's for a past event that never happened. It's being sent now in January of 2021 for an event that happened purportedly on January 6th. It was obviously satirical. But that didn't matter to the Federalist Society. They said on January 25th at 8:38 a.m., Nick Wallace sent an email to Stanford Law School's Law Talk listserv where he impersonated the Stanford Federalist Society, a student group, through a false event flyer and attributed false and defamatory beliefs to persons he listed on the flyer. I won't read this entire thing, so let's look for highlights. It uses a similar template, which is recognizable to students. Many students would not be tipped off that the email was an impersonation based on the sender. His email implied that the officers of the Stanford Federalist Society had approved the event and were responsible for creating the flyer. Wallace clearly impersonated. Something about legal writing, when you have to start using adjectives like clearly impersonated or simply this, no, take those out. The claim is that he impersonated it, not that it was clear or not. Having to add language to support it actually detracts from your case. When I, or really any judge, is reading through your brief and you're saying, this definitely happened, or like Mike Lindell's new thing says, fact, in front of every allegation. No, they're not facts, they're allegations. And when you make a conclusion, that's a conclusion, not a fact. So it actually makes us scrutinize the thing more and makes your argument weaker on its face. Wallace clearly impersonated the Stanford Federalist Society. It explains how he included a line at the top that said the Stanford Federalist Society. This is very indicative of lawyers who understand the form but not the function, really don't understand the satire but instead are just looking for anything to be offended about. Template is easily recognizable. He defamed the student group, its officers, who are apparently Josh Hawley and Ken Paxton. So those are officers of the Federalist Society. Why would the officers be offended at something that's mocking them? Of course they're going to be offended at something that's mocking them unless they are mature. And we know that Josh Hawley and Ken Paxton, from their past behavior, are not emotionally mature individuals. Wallace, impersonating the Stanford Federalist Society, wrote on the flyer that riot information will be emailed the morning of the event, insinuating the student group was encouraging and hosting a riot. Of course, it went out to the listserv on January 25th for a January 6th event. So they keep overlooking this part, even though it was literally the first thing they wrote on January 25th, it went out. He also wrote that Paxton advocates for overturning the results of a free and fair election, which he did. The false flyer was shared on social media, posted to Twitter, without mention that Wallace created or distributed it. The tweet with the capture of Wallace's flyer received significant attention, including from Twitter users who believed it was real. The flyer was posted to a public Facebook group. Many Facebook users believed the event was real and criticized our organization for hosting it, as you should be criticizing the Federalist Society for having Josh Hawley and Ken Paxton as officers, for advocating the overthrow of the U.S. government and claiming that the election wasn't free and fair and trying to overturn the results. If you don't hear it in my argument and voice, I am very offended. Josh Hawley specifically targeted my vote. He was looking to overturn the election, including Pennsylvania's votes. So I was part of his efforts to invalidate the vote, including my vote. I am very offended by that. The deceiving flyer was shared widely. USA Today did a fact-check story to confirm that it was fictitious. So good, everyone now knows it's fictitious. Many who saw the flyer were deceived. Various Stanford community members replied to the email that they thought the flyer was created and sent by the Stanford Federalist Society. You know, if the Federalist Society hadn't had officers who advocated for the who advocated for the overthrow of a free and fair election and the government resulting from it, then they wouldn't have to suffer backlash because it wouldn't have been written in the first place. When someone makes satire of something, it's because they're mocking your position or your actions or inactions on something. One student denounced the poor judgment of the Federalist Society. They thought it was a real event. Another student initially thought it was real too. So initially, and then she was corrected. Although Stanford community members eventually understood that it was being impersonated, harm had already been done. Other student groups asked to cancel joint events planned with the Federalist Society as a result of the controversy created by the email, and we, as officers of the organization, feel that our individual reputations have been harmed. Signed, somebody, I don't know. So Stanford then got that complaint and seems to have automatically, through their whatever automatic process they have, automatically started an investigation and put the graduation of Nick Wallace on hold, even though the thing was clearly satirical, even though he obviously has a First Amendment right to mock people like the Federalist Society and their position. And even though the Federalist Society is made up of libertarian lawyers who believe that you should be able to just, basically have all your freedoms and there should be no intervention by government. Very interesting that libertarians would then appeal to an authority to intervene on their behalf. It smacks of retaliation and unfair retaliation, maybe even unlawful retaliation, except that Stanford finally did come to their senses and realize that there was no basis for a complaint here. A Stanford student bashed the Federalist Society. He nearly missed getting his diploma because Stanford finally walked back on that diploma withholding position. Stanford said Wallace could not get his diploma at a June 12th graduation ceremony while the school investigated the claim that he defamed Holly Paxton and the organization, a move that threatened his chance to take the bar exam. On Wednesday evening, though, the university reversed course after a firestorm of criticism following a Slate article detailing the case. So they would have got away with it if it weren't for those pesky reporters. My immediate reaction was relief that Stanford came to its senses, but it doesn't eliminate my disappointment that it took national pressure to get Stanford to do what it should have done at the beginning, which is realize it could not take action in this case. Stanford's investigation had triggered red flags among First Amendment advocates who noted the Supreme Court has held that satire of public figures qualifies as free speech. A reasonable person can't read this email and think that on the morning of January 6th, Senator Hawley was actually in North California teaching students how to riot. That's why it's ironic. That's why it's satirical. The Stanford Federalist Society did not immediately respond to the Washington Post's request for comment late Wednesday. Gee, I wonder why. If you're running a student conduct office at a university like Stanford, which is a prestigious university and law school, you should know what protected speech looks like, and you should already have made steps to make sure you won't have a chilling effect, Steinberg told the Post. It has been a pretty awful way to close out my career at Stanford, said Nick Wallace. Instead of studying for finals, I'm trying to figure this out. I just sent an email to my family trying to reassure them that I haven't blown it in my last few days at Stanford. Harvard law professor Lawrence Tribe tweeted, mocking an ideologically based group can't be made a basis for denying academic privileges in any open society worthy of respect. If accurate, this report shows Stanford Law School to be unworthy of treatment as an academic institution. In a statement to the Washington Post, a Stanford spokesman said the school followed normal procedures and conducted a factual inquiry, resolved the complaint as expeditiously as possible, and that it was also normal procedure to hold a diploma during an investigation so close to graduation. In recent years, we have seen an increase in the number and complexity of student cases involving free speech, student judicial policies, and the California Leonard Law. We will continue to review policies and practices relating to these to ensure ongoing compliance. We are also reviewing procedures for placing holds on student accounts in judicial cases in close proximity to graduation to ensure that the holds are limited to cases for which the outcome could be serious enough to affect the timing of degree conferral. Steinbaugh wrote, "Nobody's speech is safe. If an attorney reviewed this and let it move forward, who is the adult in the room?" Wallace said, "I hope to work with Stanford in the little time I have left to make sure that no other student is subjected to an abusive process in this way again, and to develop better protections for students' freedom of expression. P.S. This email is not satire," said Wallace in his email to the Washington Post. So yeah, what a ridiculous situation. First off, even if what he wrote was somehow a violation of the school's policy, would it have really prevented him from graduating? Was the school's appropriate punishment withholding the diploma, canceling his bar exam, the ability to take the bar exam because he didn't provide his diploma to Michigan? No. Under no circumstances would basic defamation be something that I think should prevent someone from graduating. Defamation is a civil claim. If the Federalist Society had been correct that it was defamatory, it could file a defamation lawsuit and seek money damages for its defamation. The public figure part of defamation does require a much higher standard to be applied to that defamation. So the Federalist Society is public, Hawley is public, Paxton is public, all of those people, there needs to be a much higher standard. I believe it's an actual malice standard, which this does not meet the actual malice standard. So in literally 30 seconds, someone could have figured out that this was not worthy of passing along. But instead, the Federalist Society got pretty much exactly what it wanted. It got a complaint in just before graduation, even though the thing happened on January 25th. So what is that? February, March, April, and the end of May is when they finally sent it. 4 months later, right before the guy's graduation, to try and inflict the most damage possible on him. It's one thing if they had made a satirical flyer in reverse about how they didn't like Wallace. That would probably not be actionable, although Wallace is not a public figure. So different defamation standard applies. But instead they calculated it appears, to inflict the maximum potential damage on a lawyer that they did not like, which is childish, immature, and frankly, in my opinion, unbecoming of attorneys. But then again, we've got attorneys like Senator Hawley and Ken Paxton, who I don't think have any maturity or brains in their head to understand the satire and why it would be visited against them. Let me know what you think in the comments below. All right, hang on. We've got breaking news here. A really strong statement from Stanford Law Dean Jenny Martinez. Dear Stanford community, I want to send a follow-up to my email last night to provide you with a little more information and context about the fundamental standard complaint against one of our students and the resulting coverage in the national media. But first and foremost, I want to acknowledge how upsetting the last 48 hours have been for you, our students, for our entire community, and especially for the student at the center of this problematic process. I am very sorry for this distress, especially during finals and after a challenging school year due to a once-in-a-lifetime pandemic. In accordance with university procedures, the complaint was received and processed by the university's Office of Community Standards, not the law school. I personally first learned about this complaint with OCS Tuesday, June 1st, so that would have been after it was sent to the student. And the university resolved the matter 1 day later, Wednesday, June 2nd, concluding that this was constitutionally protected speech and ending the complaint process. Gee, no surprise on this end of the camera that the Federalist Society doesn't understand what constitutionally protected speech is. Unfortunately, some of the media coverage yesterday and today mistakenly attributes the university process to Stanford Law School. Well, how does not Stanford Law School have jurisdiction over a Stanford Law School student if they're not connected? If they are separate, how are they so connected that his law school diploma can be withheld by a not Stanford Law School entity? That seems like strategic wording and not an actual fact. If truly the university process can't be attributed to Stanford Law School, then why does the university process have anything to do with a Stanford Law School student? No one in the Stanford Law School administration had any role in placing the graduation on hold, and we were shocked when we learned about it. I would never have approved such a thing. Yet you approved, or the university approved, of having these disciplinary procedures connected to the law school by an office that you say is unconnected with the law school. Stanford Law School is strongly committed to free speech, is concerned about the actions and climate that have the potential to chill speech, and has shared these concerns with the university. When I became aware of this particular situation, I strongly urged the university to consider whether it needs procedures that more quickly resolve whether constitutionally protected speech is involved in a fundamental standard complaint, and also the policies and procedures that led to their placing a graduation hold on this student on the eve of final exams. I think it is imperative that we take action to ensure that something like this does not happen again, and will be working with faculty colleagues at the law school and around the university to do that. I also want to say how upsetting this is to me personally. A commitment to First Amendment rights is part of why I became a lawyer. My first experience with the law was as a high school student when my high school censored the school yearbook, and as a mock trial student. I started a protest in support of the speech rights of the yearbook and had my pamphlets on the First Amendment confiscated by the vice principal. In college, as a student journalist, I worked for a summer at the Student Press Law Center defending the free speech rights of students, and through my service at the board of an NGO, I spent substantial time over the past decade working on freedom of expression issues globally. It is crystal clear to me that, as the university concluded yesterday, the satirical flyer is constitutionally protected speech. I renew my statement that isn't it strange, or shall I say, not surprising at all, that the Federalist Society doesn't understand what constitutionally protected speech is. I have received many requests this year to condemn, punish, or otherwise suppress speech from all sides of the political spectrum. I want to reiterate that I will not be entertaining any such requests. Experience shows us the costs of policing speech are too high, and that vigorous and open debate of ideas is essential to a free society. While I urge thoughtfulness as people choose how to express their First Amendment rights in a community dedicated to learning, ultimately individuals must be guaranteed a broad range of freedoms to decide what their conscience and values dictate. I will continue to work to ensure that this is the case at Stanford Law School. Sincerely, Jenny Martinez. So I think that's a great response from the dean of Stanford Law School, but I also think the deflecting in that first page, saying that the university, Stanford, has somehow control over the law school's issuing of a diploma, but then disavowing any connection between the two, I think that's a little disingenuous. So I didn't like that part. But otherwise, I think that's a well-written response from her. She does seem to care about free speech, unlike the Federalist Society, who libertarian lawyers want to invoke authority to condemn and withhold the diploma and injure the graduation and future prospects of Nicholas Wallace. I just think that's really immature of them, and I really wanted to point that out one more time. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Thanks for watching. This channel would not exist without your support on patreon.com/ljfrench, sponsors.com/law, floatplane subscriptions, and YouTube memberships. Special thanks in the month of June to the following supporters: Joe Tyson, John Steele, Gavin Barnard, Eevi, Spirit Bear, Benjamin Hitov, Ugly Grill, Rudolph Bescherer Jr., Torpedan, Brandyn Abel, ShadowTycho, Earthbound Star, RDHDragon, and PureMagma. And thank you to the rest of our supporters scrolling on the screen in front of you. I'm Leonard French, your favorite copyright attorney. I love you all. I'll see you in the videos. Have a great week. Bye. Graduation is the end of the beginning. No, the beginning of the end. There we go.